Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about the presumptive Democratic nominee for President of the United States, none other than former Vice President Joe Biden. Yes, he's still the frontrunner on the left-wing side, and we do still have an election coming in a few months here in America in November. That's still going on in the background while lots of other crazy stuff dominates the news cycle currently, but this is about to ramp up again. This is still going on. This is happening. Of course, this is happening. And most importantly, we need to keep in mind, Joe Biden cannot win this thing. He is the worst. He is going to ruin this country if he gets a chance at power. It's going to be like another 8 years of Obama, probably worse. At least Obama had charisma. At least he was young and had, energy and the life force it took to run this thing. Joe Biden is decrepit and falling apart, and he's going to basically be a puppet kind of president if he ever makes it that far. But I don't think he's having a good chance, especially with all the mess ups he's been having on air and speaking publicly lately. Specifically, we're going to talk about a new one today where Joe Biden duffed up once again, basically saying that a good chunk of Americans are not very good people. He was caught and quoted saying this in a recent appearance interview kind of thing, and it's already looking very bad. I mean, we're going to get into the details soon, but basically this is bad, and you don't want to isolate a good portion of your possible voters. I know this is something that maybe other people could agree with. I'm sure there's a lot of jerks in America. I know there's a lot of assholes out there in every country. But when you're running for president, when you're trying to get votes, you don't want to say anything close to this. You want to be very open. You want to respect everyone. You don't want to say a bunch of people aren't very good people. And this also harps back to stuff that is similar to things that they've held against Trump and things that he's said. So there's a lot of sides and angles to this story. We're going to get to it all soon. We're going to talk about what Biden said and why it was wrong in a minute. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. Hey guys, I'm real excited to offer you this great deal coming from Virtual Shield. Their new VPN can be yours for as low as $250 per month, and it's important to consider getting a virtual private network now more than ever. Recently, a vote happened in the US Senate that agreed to give law enforcement agencies access to your web browsing history and data without needing to obtain a warrant first. That's why I think you need to consider getting yourself some more protection and security on the internet. So make sure you click that link or go to virtualshield.com/NoBS. That's right, virtualshield.com/NoBS, and you'll get yourself protected and secure, which will keep your family safe. Thanks for your time today, and now back to the show. Great, and remember, supporting these sponsors on the show helps keep No BS running. And in this time of need, in this kind of depression era, everything helps. So make sure you consider helping with these sponsors and also liking and sharing these videos whenever you can. Now, back to the show. We're talking about Joe Biden. He recently duffed up once again, saying this good amount of people in America aren't very good. So we're going to check more out about that. Here's a tweet from the Daily Beast. Joe Biden estimates that around 50 million Americans are not very good people. And now we can see a little more of the image here. It looks like he's having an interview or talk with Don Cheadle. This is an actor who I've appreciated over the years too. He's a funny guy. He did well as War Machine in the Marvel movies, lots of other good roles too. But he's also known to be really radical leftist, a really big kind of political guy. He's using his fame, what little fame he has, and he's like really trying to pivot it and turn it into this thing that shouldn't be done. He's like barely famous. I mean, I know Don Cheadle. I know a lot of us do, but it's not like he's A-list or the most famous person. So he's taken his little bit of fame and trying to spin into politics, which is just upsetting right there. But what's more worrisome is what Biden actually said. Like 50 million Americans aren't very good people. That's pretty brutal. That's kind of thing that would be, disqualifying for a lot of candidates. You don't want to say this when you're running for election, especially after the other bad stuff Joe Biden has said. I mean, this isn't his first time kind of speaking out of turn. Remember the last time he spoke publicly, I think the last time he was even in the public, this guy hides in his bunker a lot. But by the way, they made fun of Trump for going to his bunker whenever there was actual violent protesters approaching the White House, and that was protocol. But that doesn't even compare to Joe Biden, who will disappear for like a whole week. I don't think any of us have seen him in public since the Memorial Day photo op where he wore that mask and tried to like virtue signal and say, oh, I'm saving the world because I'm wearing a mask, and it had his ear bent and stuff. It all looked really bad to me. And that was right around the time. The last time he came out, it was when he said that thing about black people, like if you don't vote for Biden, you ain't black. He said something very close to that, which was very offensive. So I think that might be why he's talking with Don Cheadle now. He's trying to get back in and like speak with the black people again, like get them on his good side again, which is kind of pandering and weak and showing that he just sees them as this kind of token voting body. He doesn't really see them as people. He's not really thinking they can think freely. It's like they have to be Democrats or they're not black. It's a messed up thing to say. And it's almost as bad as this thing saying not very good people. And let's go ahead and go down through it and see what else goes on. Joe Biden thinks that around 10 to 15% of Americans are not very good people, but that the vast majority of people are decent and want to get along with each other. The former vice president and presumptive Democratic nominee appeared to get his figure out of thin air during an online town hall event with some of his black supporters on Thursday night. Do we really think this is as good as we can be as a nation? I don't think the vast majority of people think that, Biden said during the event, which was hosted by the actor Don Cheadle. There are probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of the people out there that are just not very good people, but that's not who we are. The vast majority of the people are decent, and we have to appeal to that, and we have to unite people, bring them together. Biden was discussing the importance of a president setting a good example for the nation on race issues and accused President Trump of actively working to divide the country and making the worst of us to come out. Okay, that's just BS right there. Not true at all. We'll check out some more of that town hall event in a moment, but there's a lot to break down here. I mean, first of all, like we said, I think it is reasonable to say, okay, 1 out of 10 people is going to be not very good. Like, there are a lot of assholes out there. So I'm not going to hold him to this harsh standard just because he's a candidate that we don't like. But at the same time, he should be more careful as a presidential candidate. You don't want to isolate people like that. You don't want to say things. You want to keep your base as wide open as you can. And saying there's like not very good people out there, it's just a really bad sign and a bad take. And I bet he's going to regret this in the long run. Next, the whole President Trump angle, because I think that's where a lot of this comes from, is them trying to angle at Trump and trying to come up with a way to beat him. I mean, that makes sense. They're running against Trump. Trump is going to run for re-election. Obviously, he's already winning all these primaries. There's no other Republican conservative candidate. So yeah, Trump has a good chance of winning too. So all this is posturing and kind of posing themselves up against Trump. Like, the last line is going after Trump for a reason. And that's what this kind of lower underdog side has to do. The Democrats are underdogs for once, actually. I mean, I think a lot of people would admit that. Incumbent presidents always tend to have an advantage unless there's some kind of big failure or mess up. Now, a lot of people might argue that happened with Trump, especially Democrats, but most of the stuff they've gotten against him are just made up and exaggerated. And then the events of this year, like, you can't really pin on him. Like, the health scare came from somewhere else. This whole rioting thing came from another situation. Like, it's not directly the president doing bad things. It's him dealing with kinds of fallouts and cleaning up messes. And that's a lot of what the job is. I mean, that's what cops do a lot, law enforcement, and so is like the executive branch. The executive branch is in charge of all that stuff, by the way. So this is the kind of thing they typically do. They're a cleanup crew. They got a problem. The president finds the people to deal with it. Nothing wrong with that either. But it's just the kind of job where it starts to get weird when these Democrats try to blame the garbage man, the cleanup crew, for the problem, when it's like, no, dude, he's getting called in to help. Like, you wouldn't blame the janitor at a high school when some kid throws up and they call him in to clean it up. You don't blame the janitor. Like, if someone robs your house and you call the cops, you don't blame the cops when they show up to help you and clean up. And that's the same thing with the president. People don't realize that. And I'm even realizing it more as I explain it to you. It's like, yeah, this is an executive, enforcement kind of job. He cleans up a lot of messes, and people tend to want to blame it on him. And sure, there are some aspects, like in some instances, the response can be poor or not the best or really, really bad. The responses, the cleanup crew can do bad too. But most of the time, I think Trump has been very, very above average. Like, I think even the average centrist kind of American would say he's doing a medium job. Like, he hasn't really messed things up. Some say he does good. I think he's done great. That's the kind of debate for another day. But the point is, Trump isn't bringing the worst out of these people. These people are in charge of their own worst. They're in charge of their own emotions. So if someone like Trump triggers them so much, that's really on them. They got to have self-reflection, self-responsibility. I mean, they're basically saying, hey, we're acting terrible. We're, turning into liars and cheaters. We're tearing up cities and supporting criminals and doing all this bad stuff. And they want to blame it on Trump because why not? I mean, they blame everything else on other people. Like, they're always blaming their problems on racism, as we've seen. They're always saying, hey, this is because you're racist. This is because you're a bigot, And then, so it only makes sense for them to blame Trump for this. But a lot of times, like almost all the time, actually, when you're a mature adult, you realize that you're in charge of your own reaction. So if you're going crazy because of some president you don't like, there's a certain point where it's really on you. You're the one doing that. You can't blame external forces because you're reacting poorly, because you're triggered, because you're literally shaking or crying or whatever it may be. That's on you. And that's what a lot of these liberals and the anti-Trump people need to recognize. They're not being adults. They're not reflecting and accepting their own emotions, controlling their own behavior, like getting themselves help instead of blaming someone else, which really kind of comes down to this whole story with Joe Biden too. Okay, so here's a little bit of that live event. It actually looks like it took place on YouTube. I don't know if there was like a bigger platform that had a bigger turnout. I hope so, because this little thing is not doing too well. I mean, it's 27 to 10 likes, 127 subscribers, 127,000, 3,000 views. I mean, it's really not the best turnout for like a Biden and Don Cheadle event. I don't know if this is just someone that restreamed it or something, but this is what they linked to in that article. So let's see what they have to say and give it a moment to give them some time to speak.
And with the vice president, who is hopeful to be the next president, as are we, clearly he wants to hear from us and he wants to hear from you. So no further ado, I would just like to say, welcome to all of you, and hello, Mr. Vice President. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you for doing this.
Yes, I'm glad to be doing it, and I'm glad that we could come together.
Okay, I'm already sensing a little awkwardness, a little, I don't know. There's some things here. Okay, first of all, Don Cheadle's connection is really bad. I don't know why he's on a webcam and Joe Biden is looking crystal clear like he's on a TV show, like phoning it in with the satellite. But yeah, it's like really disparity in the quality. I know this is because of what's going on and you can't get people together too much. You can't stream, can't have these events live right now, but still it's looking a little interesting, a little bad. And also I could just see, I mean, first of all, Don Cheadle has a silly shirt on. I mean, whatever. It doesn't really make a difference to what he said. The one thing I think about what he said is, like I was saying, we're coming off of like a couple weeks ago, Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That's the line. That's in the back of people's heads still. And it should be. I mean, it's really messed up, and it's another terrible thing that he said that's going to be haunting him for a while. But I think this is a reaction to that, and they're bringing in Cheadle to kind of play damage control. Like, let's get another black dude in here to kind of help him out, intro the president, make him look good. Like, kind of this token black person. And I'm not saying that to like insult Cheadle, but it just seems like he's kind of being used that way. And I think he's probably noticing that and he's accepting that. He wants Biden to win, so they're just kind of going along with it. But yeah, also Biden just coughed and he's like, I think he's got something in his mouth. Like, he looks like he's chewing something. It's just weird.
But I would just like to start off by asking you, who has seen all of these changes happen across many, many years. This is unfortunately a cyclical thing that we have seen, the institutionalized oppression that seems to somehow kind of abate in a way and then come back full force. And now,
okay, I don't know what he's even talking about. I mean, I think he's vaguely hinting at the riots that are going on. This happened just yesterday, so there's still riots going on. People are acting chaotic, but what's up with the oppression, like the institutional oppression that he's mentioning? Like, that's not to do with anything. I mean, this whole incident was based off of a misinterpretation, like a arrest gone wrong. One cop did a bad thing. There were a couple other cops there. They're all arrested and being charged. No one's defending that, but I'm just saying, how does that reflect on institutional whatever, like racism, institutional oppression? Like, this guy is just using these buzzwords. He's not really saying a lot, though. He's using a lot of words. He's taking up a lot of time, but there's not any meaning to them. There's no oppression. I mean, if America was really this racist, we wouldn't have black people on TV. We wouldn't have had a black president for 8 years. Don Cheadle wouldn't be this big millionaire Marvel actor. Like, he's just not really basing things on reality. They have these kinds of ideas and these buzzwords that they just use and use and use. It gets real annoying.
Well, George Floyd's last words spoke to a nation where the color of your skin dictates the safety in your future. And it's long past time that these words have to be acted upon. Look, just let me make something clear. I'm a white man. I think I understand, but I can't feel it.
Oh my God. Okay, this is turning into a woke fest. I didn't know how much of this we're going to watch, but this is a total white guilt-ridden dude just laying on his sword. He's just like, oh, black people, oh, I love you so much. Please forgive me. Please vote for me. Please, can you just forgive me? I can't even understand your pain. Oh my God, I can't even understand it. It's like, this is like church to them. This is like people having faith in things that they don't have proof for. I mean, what else do you call that? Like, what else do you call like religion? Like believing in something without the evidence, like just having it in your heart that everything's racist. That's what's going on here. And the fact that they'll willy-nilly, like he's quoting George Floyd and acting like he's some kind of hero and they're trying to reflect on that. They don't understand the story, or they're just ignoring it or falsely representing it. Like we've talked about before, the death was definitely unnecessary and very brutal and bad. Someone's going to get punished. All those cops are getting tried and going to go to jail or whatever need be. But you can't ignore the fact that George Floyd did some things to get himself there. I mean, he at first tried to spend fake money and fake cash dollar bills. Like he got caught with fake bills. Then he got arrested. Then he was possibly intoxicated. Then he resisted arrest. Then you look at his track record of multiple arrests over his years. You know, it's not this kind of like squeaky clean hero who didn't do anything wrong. Like there's a lot going on there and people don't want to admit that. And it's just part of the problem. It's why these things get blown up the way they do, because normally if you knew that kind of story about someone, people would rightfully be like, okay, it's bad that he died, but you know, he did some bad choices in his life. And if this guy was any other race, he wouldn't be treated like a hero. If it was a white, a brown, Asian person, like people would recognize that stuff. But for the black people, they want us to just pretend they're always perfect. And even if they do a crime, it's someone else's fault. So that's where we are today. That about wraps up this video. We didn't get to the actual Biden quote, but you understand this terrible press conference of his, horrible kinds of race baiting, him kowtowing, Don Cheadle speaking in all these platitudes. It's a real mess. And I think you guys get the point, and I think that about wraps things up. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. I'll be reading the comments, responding when I can, and also hit that like button to help support this channel. Until next time, you guys have a great day.